Let's go. Elisa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in to another episode of Security IQ. This is Elisa Mueller. Say hi, Min.
Hi, everybody. And sorry about the background. I'm covering the messes in the room right now. That's why I have the background on.
Actually, I was just going to comment on that is my favorite background that I've seen on you. I like the blurred out one just because it's like kind of vague, but this one is pretty cool. Super zen. I just want to go sit.
It's the place we all wish we were right now.
Exactly.
Right.
The mess I have there, my kids' toys and everything. So that's why I have it on.
It's all good. It's a good background. So today we are sitting with our good friend Eric, and we're going to let Eric introduce himself. But we had a short conversation prior to recording, and he has just got so much fabulous content. If you are in the military, care about anyone in the military or working with military, you have got to listen to what he has to say. So Eric, why don't you take it away? Why don't you introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background to the audience so they get familiar with you.
And also who you are, Eric, not just your background, but who you are, please. Introduce yourself.
Okay, so sure, no problem. So my name is Eric Baumgart. I am currently a senior SOC manager for a retail company here in the tri-state area. I am also retired Air Force, spent 19 years in. I've been around the world 8 times. I've spent more time deployed than at home most of the time.
Your wife doesn't kill you yet, but that's another story.
No, thankfully, very, very, very forgiving and understanding in many, many ways. We have 8-year-old twins.
Wow. Okay.
So, it that presents its own challenges in itself. But no, I mean, I spent 18 years in the military, got out, went to work as contract doing work for some DoD defense contract companies, and spent my time doing that as I transitioned and grew myself into the role that I am now. Some of the what we were talking about before, some of the big challenges for anybody getting out of the military, no matter if you've spent over 20 years or if you've spent 4 or 6 years in, it is really been that transition. And how do you move from, that rigid cycle every day of knowing what you're doing, what you're wearing, where you're going to be every day, to being home and, dealing with it, physically and mentally, because it is. And so,
Eric, I think you're really downplaying what we were talking about earlier. You're saying it so nicely, but and again, just for the audience, I've had some personal experience with this. I am not military, but I've had a lot of hands-on in terms of witnessing that transition and dealing with it on a daily basis.
And I'm going to add on to you, Elisa, my father was ex-Navy SEALs as well. So forget about the transition. The things that linger on is stuff that I think is important.
For sure. Absolutely, for sure. So Eric, talk a little bit, go into in depth a little bit on the, when you say the transition, you're going from every moment of every day with a large group of people that you depend on, life and death, like you talked about previously, and every single decision being made for you, and that structure and what it looks like. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, moving from that, it's I think saying it's tough kind of doesn't put it in perspective for most people. Mm-hmm. Being in these units and being in these organizations and spending your almost every waking moment with these people, it's family, and it's a level of family that people don't, people who don't experience it can't quite understand. And very often it's it's family by choice, not by blood. And dealing with everything, life, death, every piece in somebody else's life, being there for them, for their family throughout the entire process. And then you live with them all the time. You're there for them, and then you're transitioning out. And you're, as I put it earlier, you're almost cutting off an arm and trying to learn to live without it. When I got out and I was stationed in Germany and I returned back to California, I had to ship everything, which meant it was all getting put in a container and put on a boat, and then it was getting shipped around the world. And, showing up to my parents, doorstep, going, okay, whatever we have in our bags is what we've got. And then until we figure something out. And I had to, figure out what I was going to do every day, and, go to school, find a job, some way to support my family. And, during that time, it's a very tough time, because, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do in life. And, some people can figure it out. There are programs. Some people, and I went through this, and I, there was a dark time, and I contemplated every moment to go back overseas into the AOR, and be somewhere that I felt comfortable and not out of my skin. Because I, from where I was, where I am now, I didn't know, what I was going to be wearing to work. I didn't know, did I need a suit? What I was going to be doing? How do I even get into it? I knew what I wanted to do, and I had been doing it, but I didn't know how to get my foot in the door. And, from writing a good resume that I could use, to working with recruiters, and I didn't really know what they were, and how they could help me in that. And I eventually found a guy who was a wounded Marine, funny enough, that, helped me find a contract job. And so if it wasn't for that, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't know. I could either be still living at my parents' with my family, or I could be on the street. And just trying to figure it all out.
So you talked earlier about boot camp, right?
Mm.
And this is no secret. Boot camp is really designed to mentally break you down and reconstruct you in a way that fits that mold of the military setting. And how long typically is boot camp?
8 to 12 weeks, depending on service.
So 8 to 12 weeks of 24/7 drilling into you.
And that's just boot camp. That doesn't even include
right, all of the other trainings that you
right?
go throughout your career. So, but 24/7, this whole reconstruction process of life as you know it, to then move into yet another transition, coming out of that structure into this wide open space, this wide open environment where now you're by yourself and have to figure it out on your own. So if you think about just the mindset and the change and contortion you have to go through to make it from one leap to the next to the next, I don't think that a civilian can really fully digest that. And when they work with someone or live with someone or care for someone who has to go through those mental gyrations, they don't often understand, why someone's lashing out, why maybe they're drinking too much, or why they can't find a job or hold a job down, or whatever it is. Speak to that a little bit. Maybe give some advice to folks who have to deal with or support someone who is going through that type of transition.
And also speak about the dark spot. I think the dark times that you were talking about are extremely critical, because I don't think they comprehend what that means. Because people talk about dark being depressed, but I think that's above and beyond that.
Yeah. When we talk about it, and we had talked earlier, because I've lost, we'll call them family, during their transition and their time after. And the dark times really gets down to, the mental state of people and how to deal with it, because we live our life, we know where we're going to be 24 hours a day. We are told how to act, what to dress, everything. I mean, okay, we have to go here and get our shots. We have to go here and do PT. We have to go here and do this. Almost our entire life is planned out. And, even to, okay, we're going to move you here to the other side of the world. Okay, you're going to come back after a couple of years. Okay, you've been back for 6 months. I'm going to send you to Iraq, Afghanistan, someplace. And, if there's even the time I, spent during 9/11, and I was in during that time. 3 days after 9/11, I was on an aircraft to an undisclosed location, and I didn't know I was going. I was at work until it happened, until they made the phone call and said, go home, pack your stuff, be back in 6 hours. And so you live your life in a constant state of readiness, and now you are completely taken out. And it's not like a smooth transition. It is a thanks for everything you do. See you. Bye. And you're done. And you're put out in the world by yourself. It's almost like a parent kicking out their kid at 18 years old and saying, go fend for yourself.
Wow.
And trying to figure it all out. And it makes it even tougher, because for those who have families, how do you deal with it? How do you support your family? And then you're like, everything's rushing through your mind, and you're like, I don't know how to deal with it, because all your support structure that you had on a day-to-day basis is now gone. And so, there's dark times that happen. You think, you question everything. Am I making the right decision? How is this going to affect my family? Me, for those who live alone, I think it's even tougher. And, people think about it in different ways. And for me, I went through questioning whether, I made the right decision. And, and then making the decision on what am I going to do for a job? Because it's like, now I'm out and I have to find a job. But where before I was told what my job will be, I was told where I will be every day. And then now I have to make that decision, and I have to figure it out. I have to figure out about school. I have to figure out about work and how to get to work, and all the components that go along with it. And there are jobs that kind of, fit that military piece. And, I contemplated it of, would it just be easier just for me to go over for a year or so back overseas and just be there and be around other military or former military people, just to kind of, in a sense, ease the pain.
So Eric, what was your catalyst then that actually made you aware of, this is what I want to do, or how, this is the point where I know what I have to do in order to shift myself out of that mode?
I really don't. I think for me,
you have a catalyst. Let me say that. Have a catalyst, or it was just a mild, as you kind of like growing with it at the same time.
Well, I mean, some of it is, when we're in the military, we're taught to be resilient,
Mhm.
and we're given resiliency training. And they do address a lot of that stuff. Um, so they try to give us the tools to kind of to deal with that. And you know, it's sometimes it's tough, but I think for me, the biggest piece that helped was the support of my family. Um, and to a point, the non-judgment, the non-judgment, the support of my family and encouragement, because um, I was spiraling into a dark place. I didn't want to do anything. I just was doing what I needed to do as I was trying to plow forward, but I was getting nowhere. So it was like I was just running into a brick wall repeatedly. And you hit so many failures. And at some point you're like, am I making the right decision? Um, and how long can I deal with this? And for me, it was the support of my family. And um, even talking with my father, who was a Vietnam veteran,
Mhm.
and the support from my wife, and just basically saying it's okay. You don't I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't expect you to be able to just miraculously pop out and just be a-okay and you've got a job and all that kind of stuff. Um, and it was a slow transition. And for me, it was doing school and going to the gym,
Mhm.
which created a some kind of normalcy in my life.
Mm.
And that helped. And it's a slow process. And it's many of the military people, including myself, at times were hard-headed,
I'm not gonna comment
stubborn,
on that because I have one at home.
right? um and sometimes we feel like, I can do this. In our minds, we're like, I can do this. I can get through this. And sometimes we don't want to ask for help because we're like, we've got this. But at the same time, it's like, no, sometimes you have to stop and ask for help. And don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
That last statement, Elisa, you remember the comment whenever on our wellness webinar that we talked about with
Yeah.
Lynette? I think, we're all they're all trying to be superheroes and they will refuse
Yep.
to ask for help.
Yeah.
And
No, that's a really good point. And I think we definitely need to have a part two for this segment. We have some shorter clips that we've been pushing out, but Eric, if you will join us again for another continuation of this conversation, I
yeah,
think this will help a lot of people. Both again, people who are in the military, transitioning out, have transitioned,
yep.
still need help, and then all the people who are working, living with them, caring for them, just understanding how to better deal with this.
Yeah,
And
I think, one of the biggest things that, anybody transitioning out or supporting somebody transitioning out, that they have to understand is that there are tons and tons and tons of programs and companies that try to help.
Mhm.
And some of the difficulty is one can be finding them
Okay.
and leveraging them. um, there is a Wounded Warrior that does quite a bit to help guys get training to get into other careers.
Mhm.
um, and helping them find their focus will be the best thing for them.
yeah, that's good advice. Well, for anyone who's interested in helping or getting help, reach out, comment below, but definitely tune in for the next segment with Eric. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you.